use part of my time to present these to my bride of 26 years today. This is how we get to celebrate our anniversary. And tonight is the sports banquet. So, and you know, politics gets in the way of what we're trying to do.
But we're getting an award at the sports.
Everybody's supposed
to know. We know.
Thank you all for having me today. Thanks for the invitation. I want to tell you that I appreciate everything that Jerry Cox and Luke and the Family Council do for our state. I know Representative Clemmer does too, because you guys are essential in our state legislature and informing them about the issues we all care about, and at the federal level. And thanks for doing the candidate forum, and thanks for doing your voter guide as well. I want to start out by talking a little bit about charter school issues. And when Governor Huckabee first became governor, a group of us were so disturbed about what was going on in the country. This was the beginning of Hillary Care, believe it or not. That's how many years ago it was, in the early 90s. And we formed a group called the Arkansas Policy Foundation back then. And one of the first things that the Arkansas Policy Foundation did was kind of create a blueprint for Governor Huckabee's first term. And it was focused on tax relief for families. It was focused on better accountability in government. That's where all this, the common accounting system for the state started back in those days. And then one of the most interesting things that was really pioneering in the early 90s was the charter school movement in Arkansas. And we hired a guy named Mike Watson and his wife Donna Watson, and they were the original employees of Arkansas Policy Foundation. And they left us a real legacy that I think our legislature has built on in school choice here in Arkansas. Governor Huckabee embraced it. I certainly embrace it, because there's nothing that we're more struggling with than school performance and the performance of our kids. I mean, in a perfect world, we would have fantastic public schools where every child gets to learn, every parent was engaged, and we can't do that, you know. But the Family Council is a voice for parent engagement. It's a voice for parent and child compassion about trying to learn. It's not just about government, but you're also a voice to support competition in public education and excellence in public education. And I really appreciate that. It's George Bush said it was sort of the civil rights issue of our time. He talked a lot about sort of the soft bigotry of low expectations when he was first inaugurated. I think it was one of the most powerful things he ever said, and we all agree with that. But that war is still going on, and our state legislature carries that water. But at the federal level, we have to be compassionate that we want performance out of our schools. Who is hurt more? It is the underprivileged. It's the underprivileged. People who have access to money or a suburban lifestyle get to have a great public school or get to have school choice with their own hard-earned money. And so we need to fight for that. And I really hope we'll unify behind that. Don't let this issue be demonized. Don't let yourself be called names because you support competitive public schools through charter competition. I really urge that, and I appreciate my friend Dr. Fitzhill at Arkansas Baptist College in downtown Little Rock, who is going against the conventional wisdom and is taking a lot of flack for it. And I don't want to speak for him, but in starting a little charter connected to Arkansas Baptist College to try to bring kids up from the hood and then get them into Arkansas Baptist where they get some not only a good education, but they learn right from wrong, and sometimes even by 18, 19, 20 years old, they have not been taught right from wrong. So I wanted to start out and talk about charter. It's not an issue we get to talk about very much on the campaign trail. We get a lot of questions about it, and I wanted to mention that first. Next, you singled out, and I thought it was an interesting Family Council topic. You asked about the XL pipeline. And when I got your question there, wow, that's not a Jerry Cox question I'm used to getting, but it's a great one. Why? For two reasons. Our economy, jobs in the United States of America, export earnings, which produce jobs in the United States of America, and more importantly, than that, if there is one. National security. Colonel Reynolds talked about national security. It's absolutely key. And is that 10 seconds or 10 minutes?
Minutes.
10 minutes, all right. Hey, we're used to seconds. Most of these things we go to, you have 30 seconds for an answer. We can't even say good morning in 30 seconds. National security. National security. Because for the first time in our lives, we will control our energy destiny. Not the Persian Gulf, not Venezuela. And that's powerful. That gives America more choices. It makes our economy stronger, and it gives us more choices. Our defense and posture in the Middle East will be much better and more predictable than it is if we're dependent on that. Next, same in Europe. Putin. Why does Putin have any clout in Europe? He's a thug. Why? Because they're dependent on natural gas from Russia. If we can take American technology from our knowledge and get over into Poland and Germany and help them create their gas reserves, we end the stranglehold on Western Europe with Putin. And that is something that can be done over the next decade. And it should be a priority of the United States to do that. So I want to mention that I'm a fan of the XL pipeline for all those reasons. I think it's good. We ought to be, again, not ashamed of it. The safest way to transport fossil fuels in this country is by pipeline. Not on a train. I'm not against trains. I love trains. Thomas and the rest of them. But it's the safest way to transport it is by a pipeline. And the last thing I want to talk about and try to have time for a question or two is the topic of life. I thought Colonel Reynolds said it great. All of us are passionate about supporting a culture of life. And whenever I get asked this question, I talk about praying for adoption on a daily basis, which is part of my prayer life. I believe if we talk about that, we will change hearts, out in our country. And when I think about a culture of life, I think about one person. I was telling Jack coming over here today, I think about George W. Bush. I have never met a person in public life who was more passionate as a governor and as a president about a culture of life. And when he wrestled over his decision 2 or 3 months before 9/11 on stem cell research, how you can say this guy is not an intellect, a thoughtful person, a prayerful person, or a person who has the best interest of our country at heart, I don't know. Because he wrestled over that and he did it in the right way. If any of us who are elected officials or possible elected officials could learn from a guy on how to take a decision, it was how George W. Bush handled that very difficult decision. He's been vindicated that his approach was absolutely right. And so let's all stand together in that. And I'll conclude by saying there's a wonderful old Methodist hymn called A Charge to Keep. And I think the Family Council, we have a charge to keep. Your views, your passion, we need to hang together, whether it's at the state or the federal level, and produce that culture that is aspirational, that's pro-family, that's pro-young people, that's pro-opportunity, that's pro-religious protection and freedom. And so I urge you, keep it up. And I'd ask for your support on May 20th in the Republican primary. And I thank you for your attention today. And we may have a time for a question or two. Okay. Yes, sir.
Recently, I've noted that public polls indicate that about half the people in this country are afraid of the federal government, substantially increased. How do we turn that around?
Yeah. And I really, Conrad and Ann and I have not talked about this, about kind of the interesting questions we get out on the trail. But one that I get is this, it's not intrusion. You hear me talk about the wet blanket of regulatory policy and all that. But this question, that there's this lack of trust in the federal government. The Colonel referred to it maybe in this NSA type issue, but I hear it from people who see overreaction by the federal government in a legalistic sort of way. Like something that deserves a letter or maybe a phone call produces a visit with people with guns on their hips. And my response to that is, that's frightening. That's not the American way. It is a little concerning, and the thing to do about it is to make sure that we have a president who appoints an attorney general and appoints U.S. attorneys around the country that have good judgment about how they enforce our federal laws. And we don't have that. We have this capricious deal. When you start making up rules like claiming there's not one iota of problem with the IRS, that's not true. This woman won't even testify before the Congress. And where there's smoke, there's fire on that. And so that's why I agree that we need to have a Republican Senate that has the responsibility for confirming our cabinet members and our U.S. attorneys around the country. And it is concerning. I'm a cup half full guy, so I don't go around with suspicion about my country. I believe people who are appointed to work in our government, state and local government, are trying to do the right thing, most of them. And the ones who don't get caught and get thrown out on the street. But that mood is out there, and it's concerning. Yes, sir.
If elected to the House, would you spearhead a mission to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education?
Would I spearhead a mission to eliminate the Department of Education? I would certainly argue that the Department of Education is unnecessary and should be eliminated.
Brought back to the states.
Yeah, because you have to go back. I have this philosophy about, I answer most questions as philosophically as I can. Mitch Daniels, when he was governor of Indiana, asked one of the greatest questions on the planet. Jerry, you can feel free to use the state capitol and heard it from me. He asked, if it's in the yellow pages, why is government doing it? And you could ask that question about the role of education as a state and local matter. So how did we devolve this enormous bureaucracy in Washington on education? It's not needed. That policy is set locally. And starting with President Reagan, everybody's tried to get rid of it. Carter created the beast, and we've been trying to whack it back ever since. Not very successful, but you can count me as a person that you can. And let's correlate grades and performance of kids and school finance with their great 30-year track record of the Department of Education. You won't find it.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
To address the topic of immigration, please.
Yep. Immigration is one of those topics that we get a lot, and I think people across the country are really frustrated that we can't get any kind of consensus solution to it because it creates problems for business and trying to verify employment for workers, makes them nervous. It makes people concerned about their state and local budgets because of illegal immigrants consuming part of very sparse state and local resources. And then people are just generally worried to death about the homeland for border security. And so I'm not sure we're going to get a bill before we have a new president, is the one answer to your question. And I think we, in some ways, ought to be grateful for that, in the sense that sometimes you can get a bad bill. And I think we ought to credit the Republican House of Representatives for just kind of holding the line. And they take a lot of flack for it. But wouldn't we prefer no bill to a bad bill? So I am for border security verification, that we feel like we've really got it. I think we all share that view. I'm for expanding access to people to come into this country, study, get a PhD, stay, create a business. I think that'd be fantastic. And then I'd love to have some consensus that both sides can agree on what to do about the illegal alien population in the country. But I'm not for letting them get a free ride to come into the country and not pay any price for that. So there's just no consensus on it. I think if I'm elected, you'll view me as a constructive person to work on what is a super complicated topic. One theme I've had is that our laws since the 20s have encouraged family unification, which is good. That's a pro-family position. And it started out as parents, and then they could bring their parents, if you think about post-World War II, or post-Vietnam, or post-Philippines. And you all know, you have friends from all these countries. But then we expanded it to kids and their cousins, and we eat up all of our legal slots by that very, very broad definition of family unification. So I think that's an area to work on as it relates to encouraging legal immigration. Still got the time? We're still okay?
5 seconds.
5 seconds, quick.
5 seconds.
Yeah, you got 1 second. I'll ask for it. I'll answer.
Okay.
Comment or yes or no? just wanted you to elaborate a little bit on your answer, on the survey about Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
You had added comments. What are the comments?
I don't remember if I added comments or not.
It says you did. And also, why haven't we received your candidate questionnaire yet on the pro-life issues?
I sent it in.
And you got it.
Thank you.